Hello, I am Ali and I knit. Welcome to my channel. Today you'll be watching a time-lapse of me knitting the Silky Merino Wrap-Around Cardigan. The pattern is available to purchase on www.aliknits.com. And while the stitches flow and my cardigan grows, I want to share something more personal, my journey of recovering from a burnout. I will be speaking as a neurodivergent person living with complex PTSD, and I want to be really clear up front that I'm not a healthcare professional. This is not medical advice. I'm just going to share my story in case it resonates with someone who may be feeling alone and going through something similar. So, what happened? Well, for me, burnout didn't arrive all at once. It built up little by little as I pushed through some stress in my personal life and at work. Personally, my husband and I and our two furry children had immigrated across the world from South Africa to the Netherlands, and I started working at a very high-pressure job only 3 months later. And a bit after this, my grandmother, who was very much a mother figure to me, passed away. My pets had gotten sick during this time, and I was constantly sick. And I was also trying to adjust to a new language and a lifestyle in a completely new country. I tried to push through all of that and still show up at 100% at work, applying for not one but 2 promotions until I was juggling way too much responsibility that continued to mount until I felt like my body and my mind just collapsed under the weight. The breaking point came at work. One day, under some pressure, I had a massive panic attack. I was shaking uncontrollably, I could not stop crying, and I couldn't breathe. And I remember going to the bathroom and trying to calm myself down. I was trying to take deep breaths, and I realized that I couldn't breathe, and I was actually spiraling. The panic wasn't stopping, it was getting worse. And then this overwhelming urge came over me. I have to get out, I have to get home, I need to be safe. So I left, I walked out the building and I went home and I told my husband what happened. I remember talking to him and feeling so ashamed and so broken. I'd done so much healing in the years before, and I really believed that I'd outgrown my patterns, that this was behind me, and suddenly here I was again. It felt like I had failed myself. What did a burnout look like for me? Well, the weeks that followed were probably some of the most frightening of my life. My body was in constant distress, my neck and shoulders locked up to the point where I could not move my head. I was dizzy all the time, to the point of fainting. My heart raced for no reason. My jaw ached from keeping it constantly clenched. My tummy hurt, my ears rang, and mentally I was foggy and forgetful. I'd lose my train of thought mid-sentence, I couldn't focus on reading or following a simple conversation, and at night I couldn't rest because every time I would try and fall asleep, I would experience sleep paralysis. Not the paranormal kind, but instead the terrifying experience of my body shutting down before my mind, and I would feel myself losing the ability to move while still being awake. And all I could do was make small, desperate sounds until my husband shook me awake. Emotionally, I was so raw. I cried constantly. I felt so stupid. Panic attacks hit at the thought of any responsibility, and I could barely leave the house. I stopped socializing. I felt guilty, ashamed, and terrified that I would never get better again. There were smaller, strange things too. I had waves of goosebumps that would run up my leg every few minutes, lip twitching, eye spasms, and my hands and feet would just go numb and white. My body was literally screaming at me from every angle. By week 3, I remember thinking, what if this never ends? What if I'm going to be stuck like this forever? What I did to recover? Well, recovery wasn't easy, and the cliche, it wasn't linear. It wasn't even graceful, but little by little, I found things that helped me climb out. I took tiny steps out the house. This was the hardest thing because every time I tried, a panic attack would start. But I knew if I let my brain lock into the routine of never going out, I would never go out again. So I made myself do it in small, safe ways, like walking the dog or picking up 1 or 2 groceries, sometimes just standing outside and breathing the air. It sounds small, but for me, these little victories really mattered. I implemented gentle movement. I generally like to exercise, but at that point, anything that spiked my adrenaline or my heart would tip me into a panic attack, or I could just pass out. So instead, I turned to yoga and Pilates, gentle stretching, mindful breathing, and just slow movements. They gave me a sense of control over my body when it felt like everything was spinning out of control. I'm not a huge big pharma fan, so food became my medicine. I reduced alcohol and I cut out any sugar and processed food. I focused on whole, nutrient dense meals, a lot of salmon, avocado, olive oil, nuts, things to help my brain, and then just loads of veggies and fruit. And I hydrated constantly. I added electrolytes and I also drank a herbal tea known as rooibos, which is from South Africa. It helped me feel grounded. I had to let go of the guilt. This one was huge. I had to accept that I was unproductive and that I was healing. And if healing meant lying in bed the whole day, then that's exactly what I needed to do. Fighting it only made it worse. I knitted a lot. For me, knitting is therapy. The rhythm of the stitches, the softness of the yarn, the feeling of creating something beautiful. It gave me purpose when I felt like I had none. For someone else, it might be painting, gardening, writing, or music. The activity doesn't really matter. What matters is having something to pour yourself into. I also chose better inputs. I stopped doom scrolling and instead I started watching curated YouTube videos that were a gentle source of encouragement, stories of recovery, calming content, creative inspiration, just filling my mind with hope instead of fear. I let myself rest and I set up some boundaries. I slept when I needed to, even if it was at strange hours. I communicated clearly with my friends and my family about what I could and couldn't handle. People need to understand where to meet you when your injuries are invisible. I accepted. That could have been the hardest part. I stopped tracking or trying to control the process. I let go of counting the days. I accepted that this was happening to me and I could only move through it one moment, one day at a time. And then slowly things began to change. The panic attacks turned into just anxiety. Dizziness wasn't every day anymore. It was just little parts of the day. And some of the other things started to go away, like the goosebumps that were running up my leg. And when I cut out alcohol, my sleep finally deepened and I realized my body was healing. There was a grieving period. I want to be honest about something before I got to this stage. I had a grieving period, a stretch of time where I did none of these things. I ate way too much, bad food, junk food. I drank way too much. I lay in bed, I felt sorry for myself, and I doom scrolled into oblivion. And you know what? I think I needed that. Sometimes before you can climb, you need to just lie at the bottom for a while and just grieve. But eventually I felt ready to take a step, ready to help my body instead of punishing it. And that's when things shifted. I wanted to make this video because I didn't find a lot of really relatable stuff while I was recovering. And I just wanted to reach out to anyone who may be feeling the way I felt. If you're burning out right now, I want you to know I see you. I know how you feel. It's so scary and it feels so lonely. But please hold on. This isn't forever. Your body can heal. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Just be gentle with yourself. Take tiny steps. And when you feel like you can, give your body the tools it needs to heal. I'm sending big hugs, lots of love and encouragement. Bye.